Well, good morning, friends and freedom preppers. Perrin Lovett here for another Prepper Post News, courtesy of Freedom Prepper and that Freedom Roasters coffee. This is Wednesday, February 24th, 2021. And this is about the time of the season when I'm ready for spring. Be vested this morning in the chill here. Anyway, hello to everybody at YouTube, everybody over at the community, and everybody listening to the podcast at Anchor, Spotify, and elsewhere. Let's get right into today's sad feature story. It's almost like they just changed the date. It's the same story about the same little guy over and over and over again. Bathhouse Tony, who checked out the San Francisco scene for science many years ago, is once again calling for, you're never going to believe this, he's calling for more masks. I guess he wants you to wear 2 or 3, 10, 12 masks. Just pile them on until you pass out. Then at that point you'll know that, if you die from asphyxiation, you can't die from the coronavirus. So it makes good medical sense. I suspect he might be in the casket business, pushing this stuff for his own interest. But anyway, he's forget the vaccine. The God, there it is again. The quack scene. The vaccine. We've just got to wear masks forever. Much like Joe Biden, President of the United States, Dr. Bathhouse Fauci is saying we need to wear masks through 2022. And that's what he's going to be doing, even as the country relaxes other restrictions to combat COVID-19. Dr. Anthony Bathhouse Fauci, the nation's top infectious disease expert, said, wear your mask forever. While daily infection rates are coming down dramatically, thousands of Americans still die every day from the virus. And less than 15% of the U.S. population has been vaccinated against it. I mean, this is from Reuters. Help the man sell more caskets. Take your vaccine, wear 9 masks, and just give up all life as we have known it. Here's a related story. We've crossed a very dark, sad threshold. NBC, quote-unquote, news, and some other sources tell us that we have now had 500 trillion coronavirus deaths in the United States. Yeah, that's about right. Sure. So how is there anybody left to... Anyway, wear your mask, take the vaccine, take 2 or 3, whatever they tell you to. Do whatever they tell you to. Because that's the only way you're going to get out of this, is by bowing down and listening to experts, trusting science. Unless it's a real health emergency. Shifting gears, this is not really a feature-friendly segment today, but... make of this what you will. Comment on anything, because there is a real health emergency, and the New York Post has a great article. I was gonna read directly from it, but I'll just go off of memory here and my one quote. I've seen this before. I started noticing this story in the news, and then maybe a year or two ago, and about the same time, I was noticing it in the field. And what we have is just a completely dysgenic breakdown in human sexuality. And I'm not talking about, 897 shades of weird orientations. I'm talking about men and women, men in particular, particularly in the West, having all kinds of problems that we didn't have before. Here's a quote. Sperm counts in Western countries have dropped by more than 50% since the 1970s. At the same time, men's problems with conceiving are going up. Erectile dysfunction is increasing, and testosterone levels are declining by 1% each year. The current state of reproductive affairs can't continue much longer without threatening human survival. So warns Mount Sinai fertility scientist Dr. Shauna Swan in her book, Countdown. It's a global existential crisis. And what she talks about gets much, much worse. The T levels dropping. You can, I'm not picking on anybody, but you can see this. She talks about some of the things that may be behind this. They want to point the finger of blame at plastics, which may, in fact, have, there's a lot of toxic material floating around. It gets in us, it stays in us, and it has effects. I'm not wondering if there's also not a societal component to this with the lifestyles that have been pushed on everybody, especially in the West, especially in America, Canada, England, France. If you hang out with young people, you notice certain things, such as that, this article talks about girls are, developing earlier than ever, and they seem for the most part normal. Boys just tend to linger along as boys, and it's almost like they're asexual. And you can see it out in public, and you can see it with declining birth rates on a graph. So if Dr. Swan is correct, give it a few more generations and goodbye us. That's probably not going to happen. I'm sure this will work itself out some way, but this needs more airplay, and there's a lot of stuff we can do to individually to change this. This is Prepper 3000 level stuff here. Read the article. It's linked up at freedomprepper.com. It talks about just living as healthy a lifestyle as you can, ditching cigarettes, cutting back on bad things, and eating more lean meats and green vegetables, and drinking clean water, living a clean lifestyle. Things that people did historically up until the time of the Industrial Revolution, when all these plastics came along. Also, we've had quite a bit of radiation floating around, mainly because governments during the middle and end of the 20th century were just in love with the idea of test detonating nuclear weapons. Thank you for spreading this cancer around. But there are things you can do. Most of you, I know, are doing them. Especially if you check out the community. We've got forums dedicated to things like food production, medicine, and other things. Very informative. So y'all are slowly coming aboard. Come on over. Let's get back to the other wonderful. Here's a semi-related note. There's a guy who dropped out of college so he could build build a computer virus that masquerades as an operating system, and he was very successful with it. God knows why. He's been involved in other things like depopulation programs. Guess who is behind the new push to destroy mathematics, because math is racist. 2 plus 2 can equal 666 if you want to. I'm gonna leave that open. Guess who might be putting who has a lot of money to put behind things, and he's putting a lot of money behind this insane nonsense that you're never gonna find out if it's plastics in the cells. You're never gonna find out if there's too much radiation, because you got to measure that stuff with numbers and calculate. Based on, there are only 4 functions of math. They're all bad now, thanks to insane people like this monster, who I'm going to leave to your imagination. I bet some of you have already guessed who he is. If not, take a look at this Summit News story linked up at Freedom Prepper. Am I moving into the law yet? Not quite. This is halfway legal. Legal, like we have laws anymore. Again, the First Amendment is under attack by the same people that said that they championed the First Amendment just a few years ago. Back when they were attacking the Second Amendment, the First Amendment was sacrosanct. Next thing you know, they'll be violating the Third Amendment. They'll be trying to quarter troops in your house. It's coming. Your Congress, like they have any allegiance to you, your Congress is pushing big tech to do what Congress cannot legally do. They do whatever they want to now because, the law is over. But they're pushing, I don't know, I don't want to say YouTube or Facebook because those are such wonderful organizations that have always been so good to us. But certain big tech companies are starting to crack down on free speech, not on their own, well, on their own, and because they're being pushed by, crazy people that hate numbers, and they're being pushed by Congress. The great Glenn Greenwald, who, if you've got to have a liberal pointing out things that the conservatives let slide, then so be it. A key point raised by these last threats from House Democrats is an often overlooked one. While the First Amendment does not apply to voluntary choices made by a private company about what speech to allow or prohibit, it does bar the U.S. government from coercing or threatening such companies to censor. In other words, Congress violates the First Amendment when it attempts to require private companies to impose viewpoint-based speech restrictions, which the government itself would be constitutionally barred from imposing. Again, their mantra forever was free speech for us, down with your blasphemy laws. If you don't like it, turn it off, avert your eyes. Now, if they don't like it, they shut you down completely. Who says this, by the way? Who says this is wrong? Well, the ACLU. So there's that. Not that we have ever had any direct experience with that kind of thing around here, and I'm sure we never will. Oh, I'm still not to the law. I was going to pick on, I don't want to pick on anybody. So I'm too hard on everybody sometimes. I need to be more self-deprecating. Bad possum. But I saw this list of the top 70 conservative websites, and I meant to pull this one up too, but some of them at the top you've heard of, and then around number, 7, it just starts going haywire, and the way they rank them, I don't know what their metric is, but in the top 20 or so, they include the Alexa website ranking. If you're inside 1 million, you're really relevant. If you're inside 1,000, you're a name brand, and if you're number 1, you're Google. A lot of these people, they go from being number 30,000 to 60,000 to 100,000 to 1.8 million, and then they just stop tracking it. This is from FeedSpot. There's a whole lot of people on the right, and again, these are gatekeeper conservatives, most of them. Some of it's honest journalism, or honest journalism as it was currently affected by the changing politics. But they leave a lot of people off, and one of my favorites would rank, I think, number 13 or 14 if he had been included, but he's a little too right for the right wing. Freedom Prepper, and I did not quite make this for whatever reason. But now let's get into what passes for law in the United States, the United Soviet States of America, with a K. Was it last year or the year before? America never negotiates with terrorists until we do. Sometimes you have to, especially when you make a mess, and negotiating is the only way out of it. Donald Trump, when he was president, reached an agreement with the Taliban to get the U.S. out of Afghanistan. The Taliban was going to stop attacking us. We were going to stop attacking them. We were going to draw down and leave them to keep doing whatever they've been doing for the past 5,000 years. The graveyard of empires. And it was slowly happening under Trump. The agreement was working well. Now there's rank speculation. Will Joe Biden abide by that agreement? I would suggest not holding your breath. But we don't know. We're going to find out. Also, here's another one I don't expect to last, even if it passes. Last year, for no reason at all, we got treated to a lot of peaceful protest. Now, when right-wing people protest something like electoral politics, that is a riot. That is violent insurrection led by Nazis. That is bad. However, when people burn down entire cities and loot and murder and riot for months, that is good. That is a peaceful protest. That's what a healthy democracy depends on. Sometimes these peaceful protesters like to do things like block interstates. And sometimes they will attack your car. They will surround your car, take you out, beat you, set your car on fire. Or if they can't, if they're not all in position at once, they'll run out in front of you, even if you're going 70 miles per hour. People ran over some of these peaceful protesters last year. And the state of Oklahoma wants to give immunity, legal immunity, to people who run over peaceful protesters in certain situations. Now, this does not give you a license to go driving down the sidewalk, mowing down, insurrectionists and, grandmothers and orphans. But look, in Oklahoma, this might pass. I don't expect it to last long. Let the courts get a hold of it. There'll probably be more peaceful protest about this. And it's just, this is what happens when, Andrew Napolitano wrote a pretty good book a few years ago, or 20 years ago, called Constitutional Chaos. We're living in it, and isn't it great? It gets even better, because back in, I think it was 1994, the great USSA Congress, which was still arguably the U.S. Congress back then, passed a law to stop violent insurrectionists from trying to save small children from being murdered. Just like we want to burn cities, we want to kill babies. And if you if you stand in the doorway and try to block a baby from being murdered, you're a criminal. And I think it's on your second arrest for that, you're a federal felon. So we have a law that makes felons of people who try to protect children. I would argue that this is proof positive the USSA is evil and deserves exactly what it's getting now. Take a look at that. It's a very good write-up. It's as caustic as what I just said, just in a different way. It's a crisis magazine. All right, the last word of the day is identity. Everybody's afraid of identity politics, except the people that are wielding them like an axe right now, chopping everybody else up. The order of business is identity trumps culture that trumps politics. Your conservatives who just want to, admit defeat and, move along with the progressive agenda, they reverse that. It's all politics. We're red states and blue states. If we would just read the Constitution, it's not like that. There's a war going on, and Paul Craig Roberts has some interesting takes on that as it pertains to the majority of the USSA. But I found a better, more universal story at the Organic Prepper. Again, for my money, the best plain prepping site on the internet. I wonder where they rank. I'd kick them up to about, number 5 or 6 overall. Daisy, just what an incredible job she does. And this is not her article, but it's from somebody in South America who knows. There's been unrest in Venezuela because they are 10 years ahead of the USSA down the road to socialism, and that, produces chaos. Constitutional chaos produces refugees, people trying to flee the lack of power and the police crackdowns and no food, no gas, no jobs, no money. They flee to places like Peru, and they come in as refugees. Now, both of these are formerly Bolivarian republics, established essentially by the same man, the George Washington of Central and South America. Very similar people. To the average American, a Peruvian and a Venezuelan look the same. They're not, and they can tell the difference. So you had a refugee from Venezuela who was attacked and murdered on the streets by some angry Peruvians. And the other Venezuelans quickly responded and retaliated. This is not because, nobody was reading the Constitution. Nobody was reading The Road to Serfdom. This had nothing to do with red, blue, conservative, liberal, idiot politics. This really didn't have anything to do with culture, because the cultures are, they're Latin. They're pretty much the same. But they're not, because of the identities. They can tell. It's just like Rwanda. The Hutus and Tutsis to us look exactly the same. To them, they're not. And the sooner people start to realize this, the better off we'll be. Myanmar is an example of a country where the people want to remain the people, and in the face of political shenanigans, to include massive election fraud, the military and the wise men of the country are standing up and doing something. And they're not talking about Milton Friedman or or Hayek or the Constitution. They're just saving the Constitution by doing what they have to do for their people. So get that straight, and I'm sure that alone will get us ranked in the top, 80 out of this list of 70 top conservative websites. We'll see how we fall tomorrow. There was something else I was going to talk about, but I'll get to that later. And there was something I wrote, a couple of things I wrote that I'll get to later as well. I want you to get to having a great hump day. It's Wednesday. Rejoice. And stay safe out there. God bless.